Good morning. Welcome to Ask Coach Pat question and answer for April 2026. As always, going to lead off with the disclaimer. I am a personal trainer. I am not a medical professional, not a registered dietitian. So I give advice using my experience, 50,000 hours of experience, 30 years of it, and try and give you the best answers I can. So we'll start off with the questions. I have 10 questions prepared from earlier, and then hopefully we'll get some more questions. And then after that, I'll go into a little rant uh, for today. So, first question. If one side of my body is clearly weaker, should I stop doing barbell lifts and only do single arm or single leg stuff? So, a barbell is obviously a bar where we use both arms, and then a dumbbell would be one where we use an individual arm. So when we have imbalance, which is actually not just uncommon, it is everyone. Nobody is perfectly balanced on both sides. So we can't expect that one side is always going to be weaker than the other. And a lot of times, if we're using a unilateral or one arm at a time device, say we're using dumbbells to do a dumbbell bench press, one side will be weaker than the other. And it'll be accentuated as we get to fatigue at the end of that set. That doesn't mean that there's a huge imbalance or that we need to necessarily change anything. A lot of times, just mental focus on our weaker side can help stimulate muscle and cause change on that side to help catch up. But like I said, we can never expect complete balance. Now, when we have large imbalances, we can do work with that individual side, although that should not be the primary part of your training. I would say do some to try and accentuate or help that side catch up, but that should not be most of your training. Now, if it's that significant that it requires probably some kind of medical intervention where you're seeing a therapist and we're causing, because there's an injury or something going on that's not allowing that side to produce force and not allowing it to keep up with the other side. So, in that case, then we want to see a doctor, a physical therapist, and try and get to the root of what the cause is and why that side isn't able to catch up. Number two, how do I know the difference between soreness, normal soreness, and I should probably back off soreness? It's a very good question. Generally speaking, soreness comes from taking a load that we're not used to through a range of motion that we're not used to. Those are the two factors. So if you've done a new exercise, something that you've never done before, things like that, I would expect that that's normal soreness, even if you're not working with a tremendous load, just because it's unique to your body. And that's actually a good thing. Um, when the soreness is acute, when it's a sharp pain, things of that nature, that's indicative of an injury. Now, all soreness is a form of injury. Like normal muscle soreness is a caused by small tears in your muscle fiber. We want this because that's how your body adapts and repairs and gets stronger. But if those tears get too large, they kind of go into the injury element, and that's when you get that sharp pain. So, kind of a general rule of thumb, if you are warming up and the pain is going away, starting to feel better, that's a normal soreness. If we're, as we're trying to warm up, we're realizing that we're feeling sharp pain in a particular spot, that's more indicative of an injury. So, that would be when you need to back off, maybe see if medical attention is needed or what's going on with that case. So, that would be when you would not want to push through. But if you can warm up, soreness starts to dissipate or spread out and go away, then obviously, that's the time. Now, that next workout afterwards, you probably would not want to work too intense in the areas that were still sore. So that, as far as backing off, maybe lowering the load, focusing more on range of motion, things of that nature may be better in that situation. Third question, do regular adults need power training or is this just for athletes? Um, So explosive movement is power training, basically. And that comes from a mindset. It's not a function of how much load you're lifting, I mean, to yourself, but not compared to anybody else. So as long as the load is challenging, that would be powerlifting or power training and explosive movements. And how we go about these lifts is more of a mental focus. In other words, when we're doing, say, a sit to stand, how fast we stand up or how fast we try and stand up is what makes that an explosive movement. What we're trying to do is cause your body to fire off as much muscle as possible. When you push something or stand as fast as you can, or any explosive movement, that's causing your brain to tell your muscles to work as hard as they can. not factoring how much load. It's just saying move this load as fast as possible. That's an explosive movement, and that causes muscle fiber to be fired off. The more explosive we work, the more muscle we fire off, the greater the change is. So explosive movements are important for anybody trying to cause change in their body. It's not limited to athletes, not limited to anybody of particular age. When we're doing movements of that nature, we must lift more than 50% of our maximal load in order to create change in our body. To signal that your body needs to adapt, you must lift a load that is more than 50% of your maximal load. So how do we know that? Where do we get a 50% max load? Well, we don't have to do a max 1 rep test to find that out. Conveniently, if we lift a weight 20 times, if we're able to lift something 20 times, if I tell somebody to do a bench press with a particular load and they're able to do it 20 times, that means it's less than 50% of their maximal load. If they are able to do it 10 times, that means it's less than 70% of their maximal load. So you can see as we work our way, we don't necessarily need to do a 1 rep max load to determine if we're in the ballpark of a 50% max. Okay. So we must challenge your body in order to create an adaptation. So if you want to call that power training, that's what it is. And that's for everybody. Do women need to train differently than men if the goal is muscle and fat loss? Uh, Quick answer, no. The biggest difference between men and women is hormones. And through different stages in our lives, those are uh, have a different effect. Different stages in the menstrual cycle has a different effect on women. But that doesn't mean training changes. Okay, performance might be affected to some small degree, but not enough to change your training. Um, at any point in your menstrual cycle or any point in your hormonal cycle going through life. Um, Kind of similar to the question earlier when, soreness or backing off, same idea. Understanding how you're feeling mentally and things of that nature are important. But as far as the physiology of men and women, nothing's different. Okay, as far as our training is concerned. Um, Typically, we don't train towards our goals, and we'll talk about that in the rant. And that's when um, I would say it's dangerous, not necessarily physically dangerous, but a mindset is that you're different because you're a woman or different from you're a man. The goal is the most important thing. What you're trying to train for, whether you're trying to build muscle, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to, create endurance, all those different things. Um, that's more specific to your training than whether or not you're a man or woman. So hopefully that helps to answer that. Is sleep really that important for fat loss and muscle gain, or do people overhype it? Sleep is an interesting one. We're learning more about it. Kind of goes back to how our brain works. And there's a lot of things we don't know, we don't understand, but we're getting closer. We know that sleep is important for recovery, how your body gets the benefit from the workout they did. Um, so having a high quality sleep or enough sleep to allow physiological recovery is important. But that is very individual. So what is enough? That's something we don't really understand, how some people can operate fine on 6 hours sleep. Sometimes people, they don't get 9 hours, they're not functional. So people are very individual as far as that's concerned. But suffice it to say that yes, sleep is important for recovery or maximizing the benefit of your recovery. The other side of it is mental. Obviously, without sleep, we don't mentally function as well. So we can just assume that your mental stimulation of your body's ability to use your brain to stimulate your body is not going to be as good. Um, your focus while you're working out, your likelihood of injury because of lack of focus, being attentive to what you're doing, that can all definitely be affected by your sleep. So we don't necessarily know the exact physiological factors of a lot of benefits of sleep, but do know it is important. That's obvious. And if we're trying to work at a high level, if you're an athlete trying to perform their best, no doubt that sleep should be a big factor, making sure you're getting a proper amount along with, nutrition, hydration, all those kind of things. It's another element that if we're trying to maximize our performance, it's obviously a critical part. Number six here. If I can't get into a deep squat, should I force it, stretch more, or just squat higher? Um, I would say all three of those. Generally speaking, with mobility, so we're talking about you're not being able to get into a deep squat because you lack mobility. That's something you're not necessarily going to fix by trying to squat deeper. Usually, what we'll have to do is move to other exercises to help with mobility, and then we'll come back to our squat, and hopefully that'll increase that range of motion. Um, as in reference to the squat, though, as I said earlier, we can challenge your muscle in two different ways, with load or range of motion. So clearly, if you're at a point where you're not able to squat deeper, you're not able to increase the range of motion, but you can increase the load. And that's, again, another way to challenge your body. I would say you do want to, I shouldn't say force it, but we want to work to a maximal level every time. Okay. So each time you squat, we're going to try and improve that range of motion, try and take us to its limit with proper form. And then from there, hopefully, we'll increase the range of motion along with the load. But generally speaking, as I said, you're going to have to go to other exercises that identify where your limitations are in mobility, whether it be in your knees and your hips or your ankles. Those are the general factors, most commonly in your hips. Your knees and toes should be in an alignment with your squat position. So, because we're getting deeper, if we change that angle, you're not actually squatting deeper, you're just changing the squat. So, it's not actually a proper squat. So, we don't want to do that. We don't want to make those kind of adaptations. We want to continue with proper form and then again find the source of why the mobility isn't working to the range we want. If I'm older, my balance is getting sketchy. If I'm older and my balance is getting sketchy, should I focus more on balance drills or strength? And I've said several times before, balance comes from strength. Um, People's balance isn't necessarily what, as they age, it's not their balance they lose, it's the strength they lose to catch themselves when they lose their balance. Now, when we're talking about balance, doing balance type of exercises, if you can think of standing on one foot and extending your other foot out, things of that nature, standing on top of a wobble device, what these do is stimulate your brain's ability to activate muscle to catch you in different movement patterns. So that's why that's beneficial. It's a way for you to train that connection, mind-body connection, so that your brain is able to stimulate proper movement or ability to catch that. So just moving laterally, for instance, we're very much as humans, we tend to move forward, but just moving on a lateral pattern, stepping side to side, that'll change your body's awareness, your ability, to perform that action, which is generally the kind of things you need when you need to catch yourself when we lose our balance. So that's what I would consider balance training. But overall, strength training, say for instance, doing a lunge, that's going to be the number one way you catch yourself when you fall or trip. And that's strength. So strength exercises in different planes of motion will be the best way to prevent falls or prevent injury in that respect, which is, I would guess generally what the question is referring to. Safety, trying to stop yourself from falling. So hopefully that answers the question. A combination, doing a little bit of, some different things that your body's not used to, um, in a safe way. So we don't want to just go stand on top of a ball and see how long we can do it. The final result may not be what we're looking for. So we don't want to hurt ourselves trying to do exercises to stop us from getting hurt. All right. If I could only give busy adults three fitness habits to focus on, what would they be? So, strength training, number one, strength training is going to give you the most bang for your buck. It's going to give you the most benefit across all planes as far as health, whether it's building strength, keeping your body's body composition good as far as body fat, um, preventing disease. strength training has been tied to all these things as the most beneficial thing there is. So I would say strength number one, um, mobility. So any kind of stretching or allowing or teaching your body to work on different patterns, planes of motion. Um, Therapeutic is where I'd kind of put that box if you want to talk about a fitness habit, therapy, and then movement. So what does that mean? That means getting up and going. So walking, jogging, all those kind of things. Um, Burning calories, but not necessarily for the point of burning calories as much as that you're making the machine work. So that's why it's important to walk daily, things of that nature. I put that third because I don't believe that that is the most bang for your buck. It is the easiest one to do, so it's probably the starting point for a lot of people. But as far as critical to your health, again, I would say strength, therapy, and movement are the three habits that I would recommend that people try and identify and put into their regular lives. How many days a week do I really need to lift to see results if I have a full-time job and kids? Well, it probably doesn't matter if you have a full-time job or don't. Um, so generally speaking, what we're talking about is stimulating your muscles. So your body doesn't know a week. Your body just works on a continuum. So it really doesn't matter as far as, what happens Monday through Sunday. It's what happens as life goes on. The reason I say that is because that's how you should work on a continuum of that nature. So it's not in a 7-day cycle. It's on, whatever cycle fits your workout routine. So if you're doing a 5-day cycle, then that 5-day cycle continues regardless of the day of the week. Um, Muscles, as far as strength training, require recovery. So you can't do that, or you can't work the same muscles every day. That doesn't mean you can't work out every day, but you can't work those same muscles. If I work my biceps on a Monday, I can't come back and work my biceps again until Thursday. Now you can again work other body parts. So then it would more depend on how you break down that body part. So for instance, generally I work on a 3-day cycle where I'll do pushing exercises, pulling exercises, and then legs as far as my strength training. So conceivably I could do weight training every day and have enough recovery time. Um, because again, if I'm doing pushing on Monday, I'm not coming back and doing pushing again until Thursday. That allows my body conceivably enough recovery time. But that's more on a minimum. So depending on the intensity of your working out, you may want to have another day off before you come back, to allow for soreness, to allow for maximal recovery. Um, so I would say it more depends on your intensity and how many body parts you work as far as your frequency. If you're doing a full body workout, I would say twice a week for strength is the best. But if you're not doing any strength training, doing it once a week is a great starting point. And when you decide that you're enjoying that and want to maybe create more intensity, going to twice a week is great. Um, when we start doing 3 times a week, then we cannot do full body training 3 times a week. We understand. So hopefully that answers that question a little bit. I know it can be confusing when we talk about breaking down, workouts and things of that nature. The question originally was about someone that obviously is talking about time limitations. That's what they're referring to, I assume, and they're talking about having a full-time job and kids. So I would, you know, that person has to really decide what's working out better in their life. Maybe taking an hour to do a full body workout once every 3 days, or maybe 20 minutes every day. I don't know what's easier for that person, what's going to be more routine for them. But that is the most important thing, that they can get into a routine that they can consistently do. What supplements actually matter and which ones are for mostly expensive pee? Um, so supplement is just that. It's a supplement. So the supplement is for something that you're not actually getting in your regular diet. So that's impossible for me to give one general, except that a multivitamin is something I do every day. A multivitamin is going to help A complete multivitamin is going to help with some of those deficiencies that you might have in your normal diet, and they're not the same deficiencies, you know. Um, as far as supplements out there, I'm not a huge supplement person. I think my number one supplement is protein because that's the thing that people generally have a hard time getting enough in their regular diet. So that would be your best bang for your buck, protein, and a multivitamin. Beyond that, there's, certainly a lot of research being done around creatine right now and its benefit for performance recovery, especially. And not enough is really known about that for me to confidently recommend that everybody do that. And there is issues potentially with adding something to your body especially at a high dosage, that it does not need, as far as being able to filter that through your body. So I would need some more research to say that that's something I would recommend for the average person. If you are a high level athlete, you're trying to find every little thing to create any performance advantage you can, then creatine is something that you should definitely look into and try. Um, Other than that, I would say as far as supplementation, it really requires you to look at what's deficient in your diet. Um, if you're having a problem with vitamin D, anything, vitamin C, things of that nature, then that's something that you would try and identify. But without the help of a doctor, an endocrinologist, someone like that, it's really hard to recommend any kind of supplementation. Okay. What we should try and do is make sure we have balanced diet so that we're getting all the nutrient benefits in our actual diet. So that would be my best advice for that. All right, that's the questions I have. Let me just really quickly check if we got any more. Not right now. So I'm going to go on to my rant. So the rant I have for this week is talking about how people's workouts don't normally match their goals. Um, I see a lot of people that are very dedicated to their workouts, will tell you how wonderful their workouts are, whether they're doing whatever, and I'm not going to pick on any particular workout. But a lot of times that's because they're comfortable with what they're doing. Maybe they've been doing it a while, it doesn't challenge them, they're in their comfort zone. And quite frankly, that's generally what we don't need. What we need to do is get outside our comfort zone. Things that you consistently have been doing for a long time probably aren't creating the changes or giving your body the benefit that it once did. Um, People often will, do their favorite. If you go to the gym, the people do their favorite exercises. I watched a man the other day, 60-year-old-ish man who clearly, well, I shouldn't say clear, I don't know his goals, but just judging for myself, looked like he was probably there for general fitness, probably to get into a little better shape. And what I watched this man do was some bicep curls, and that was about it. And that's, we're talking about, not that there's anything wrong with the bicep curl, but that is a small muscle in the grand scheme of things, causing very little adaptation in his body. But I'm sure the exercise he was comfortable doing, and he knew it helped his biceps, and maybe he liked his biceps. But as far as identifying helping him and overall, it's probably doing very little. I watched a clearly overweight woman one time come to the gym many times and spend about 15 minutes doing core work like sit-ups, crunches. And I'm gonna guess that this woman is trying to lose weight in her midsection. So she's trying to exercise that area. The problem is she's working those muscles. She's not doing anything for fat loss in that area. And what I mean by that is she's not benefiting or maximizing the benefit of the time she's spending doing the exercise. What that woman should be doing is working on large muscles to create change in her body. Now, I will say we get judgy a lot of times when we go to the gym, myself included, and we project or think we know why that person's working out. And I've learned to not do that. While I may make notes to myself, I would never say anything to that person. I have my clients sometimes will say to me, "Hey, how come doesn't that drive you nuts watching somebody do something, and know they're doing it wrong?" And that would assume that I know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I've learned to not do that. But I will say that many people do not do the workouts to match their goals. They do, again, what's comfortable, what they've done in the past. But that overall is not creating adaptation in their body. The body has to do something it's not comfortable doing to cause it to change. So if you've always done the same workout, you probably should be looking for adaptations to that. What can I supplement or put into the workout that's going to cause me, whether it's different exercises or even whole different genres of exercise. If you're constantly all you're doing is lifting weights, it's typical. A lot of men my age, they're comfortable lifting weights, but they don't do any mobility training, right? And probably 50% of their time should be done doing therapeutic mobility kind of things to help with their overall body and what their goals are. So we want to identify what our goals are. For instance, if your goals are to, gain muscle and you're not lifting, over 50% of your maximal load, that's not going to happen. Um, there's a lot of old myths out there. The idea that lifting heavy weight causes you to get large. And that's simply not true. One of my favorite examples, probably one of the pound for pound strongest people I see in the gym, is this fairly small guy, and he throws a tremendous amount of weight around. He has fantastic form, is clearly is trained in powerlifting. And what my clients will always say when they look at him is he's not very big. It's like, yeah, like strong muscles don't have to be large. Um, Hypertrophy, making muscles stand out, actually comes from a smaller load for a more repetitions. So, for instance, a bodybuilder that's getting close to competition will do light weights for them for high repetition. And what this causes is oxygenation in the muscles, causes them to stand up, creates hypertrophy. But this doesn't have anything to do really with strength. So, a bodybuilder isn't looking for strength, they're looking for to look good, right? They've built muscle, now they're trying that muscle stand out. And they're working in specific muscles. So, in other words, they spend a lot of time working on individual muscles to try and create that look that they're standing out from other muscles. That's what creates the cuts or that bodybuilder look. Um, Now, if we look at someone that's trying to, as I said before, keep your weight or keep your body's metabolism high, building muscle is what we're looking for there. So if a woman is trying to keep her weight down, her size down, uh, powerlifting or lifting heavy weights is going to help to create this effect. It's not causing the muscles to stand out, it's causing them to get stronger, more dense. So someone more dense is going to have a leaner look. Someone that's dense in the same weight as someone that's not is going to be smaller. So lifting heavy weights doesn't necessarily make you bigger. The only way you get bigger when you're lifting heavy weights is by eating more. That's the only way someone gets large. You can lift no matter what weight you lift. The only way you get larger physically is by consuming more calories. That's how you gain weight. If you lift heavy weights and don't eat more, you won't get larger. You will not get bigger. So understand, what your goals are, what you're trying to go for. As we age, we lose mobility. So as we age, we need to add mobility training into our program. Um, so working out towards your goals, understanding what your goals are and how to achieve them and working towards that is a big deal and something that I think more people need to identify. Um, and that's about all I have on that. So please, next month, come back, more questions for me. And as I said, I'm a personal trainer. I'm not a medical professional, not a nutritionist. I'm not trying to go into that space. I'm trying to offer the best advice I can, and hopefully you appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. See you next month.